In this video, we are going to show you how to utilize an amazing resource, Sunday Screens, alongside of your Altitude LED wall. If you're a customer of Altitude LED, we actually include a subscription to sundayscreens.com, which has amazing resources for these ingredients, for visual content for your worship services, as well as additional training material. But I wanted to make a video in collaboration with Ezra Cohen, founder of sundayscreens.com, and he's going to walk you through many of the packs that are going to be available with your Sunday Screens subscription. And I just want you to be inspired and to see what is possible with this fantastic resource. I really do think this is the future of worship visuals and utilizing these tools like Resolume and these LED walls. So make sure you stick around to the end to just really truly grasp what is possible when you piece together these different ingredients.
Dude, Jake, thanks for having me. Super stoked to be here and be able to look at these visuals on such a beautiful wall. Truly, this is the dream setup. And so, yeah, I figured I'd just kind of show you some of the visuals that we've been working on here at Sunday Screens. Again, this is a membership that gives you basically, full access to our entire library, as well as new 4K packs releasing every single month. So this is we are really committed to bringing the best of the best to you and your church and your team. You can visit the website for yourself. Here you're going to see the full collection, all of the different visuals that we have, but again, more stuff coming all the time. So yeah, I just figured I would kind of bring us in here, get to show some of these visuals on a wall so you can kind of see how they feel in a room. But for us, we're super intentional, my team and I, after 10 plus years of getting to work with worship artists like Carrie Job and Cody Carnes, Chris Tomlin, Elevation Church, Hillsong, we've really gotten to see a large number of spaces. We've seen, small churches, we've seen arenas, we've seen everything in between. And the beauty of what we've now been creating is that these work across the board. We've been very intentional to not be focused too much on quantity, but truly on quality. Because at the end of the day, when you start working with visuals like this, there are certain things that truly do work, and I'm going to talk you through sort of some of the intention behind that. So, big picture, before I show you that, the things that I'm looking for in a worship visual, we're really being intentional about the colors, the textures, and the pace. Those are three things that are really, really important. And then on top of that, we're always trying to find a balance between what is called negative space, which is essentially the black area of your screen, versus filling out the entire frame. Negative space is such a it's a very powerful creative tool that you can use, and we'll see as we go on that some of these almost look like they're floating and that there's almost sort of no border, and that's a very intentional move. And then others have a very, very set, this is a rectangle, so to speak, and that's really intentional as well. So I'll just kind of dive in and, sort of show you that the variety that we're trying to build in this content library. So just going alphabetically, we're going to start with our analog collection. These were scanned on what is called a CRT TV, like the old TVs we all had in our basement growing up, or in our living room, the 90s or whatever. But these were scanned on an old, 90s television. And so you can see that texture there is true, vintage texture. Again, same for this. Here's another look from that collection. It's just got this sort of fun, vintage texture. It's great for fast songs, especially great for youth meetings, things like that. Moving on to this Arches collection. This is something that people are really excited about, especially using for Easter. It really hints at this sort of heavenly or celestial concept, or even the idea of the shape of the tomb and the stone being rolled away, and this whole sort of eternal tunnel is really cool. And then we've got these more intense, fun versions of that, which are super fun.
I just love the feeling of depth to it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Man, it just especially if you were we're pretty close to the screen here, but if I was out in the congregation, just feeling oh, there's a tunnel right there. What's going on?
Yeah, exactly. And so it almost becomes this set design piece where the whole room kind of extends almost infinitely, which is super cool. This specific collection was designed by a guy named Nathan Duck, who is an expert in 3D animation. This is not something that, you can just throw together even in something like After Effects, even as complex as that is. This was done by literally modeling these images, placing lights in a virtual space, and then moving a camera through them.
That's cool.
It's so fun. And so like the guys that we have on our team truly are some of the best in the world, and it's truly an honor to get to work with them. Moving on to something like border, like again, this is super simple, this is almost more of like an ingredient, right? It could be used completely on its own and have a very sort of like intimate, soft feeling. We've got it in multiple colors, but even using this one, and this one's actually available in our free sample pack. So even if you're not ready to become a full member, this is available in our free sample pack where you can download 5 free worship backgrounds in 4K resolution for you to test out and use in your worship services absolutely free. But if you're using them in something like Resolume, the cool thing is we could even apply, different colors to this and get so much out of, this one look. We could change this white to any color that we wanted. So even though, in the full collection, we have these other colors built for you, you can do whatever you want, even just using that free sample pack.
Speaking to how you use this as ingredients too for building blocks, show real quick, if I want to put like the Jesus proclamation or declaration above that and kind of layer them on top of one another.
Yeah, so check this out. So I'll get into this visual on its own in a second, but we can actually fade these together.
Yeah.
And now I've got this really cool element that's kind of declaring the name of Jesus. That's from our declarations collection, where it says, it's got multiple versions of this Jesus text or holy and things like that, but using it in connection with this background, this border, again, we just have this ability to really, even just using those 2 elements, you could build out an entire worship song very easily and create this really powerful moment. And then moving on, we've kind of looked at this in other videos, but we've got this collection called Breaking Lights, and kind of hinting at what you were talking about earlier with the layering. The nice thing about using something like this in Resolume is we can actually stack those 3 things on top of each other, and we can start here, we can fade in this other dynamic, and then fade in another dynamic.
Yeah, it still feels like it's the same video you're watching, right?
Exactly.
You're not like seeing it cut from video to video, but man, I love that.
Yeah, it's so fun. So that's one of our favorite collections. It's just very soft, very, feels very intimate. But again, you could grow it into something bigger for sure. We've got these clouds, which again, are just really fun either for a fast song or something that's more sort of like uplifting. You could totally use this anywhere in a set. I would say almost like beginning like song 1 or like towards the end of a song 4 as you sort of, are transitioning. Could be really cool. This is another element from our clouds collection that's actually included in our free sample pack. So you can go and download this for free, like we mentioned earlier. Kind of taking that same concept and applying that to that sort of arch look. There's something about an archway that just has sort of a hint at something, almost like a stained glass type shape.
Yep.
So we're kind of creating these like modern interpretations of, things that we've seen all throughout history. And I think, from a creative standpoint, whenever you can start like hinting at, the breadth and the depth of church history and, how far and how deep this really goes, it just, even if it's a subtle thing that happens in your subconscious, it's creating this idea in your mind and this understanding of how deep this really is and how beautiful, our faith is, truly. Yeah. And so that sounds like a very sort of meta explanation for just clouds and an arch, but that's the intention going into it,
Yeah, it's important to consider these things, and I think we haven't even really maybe scratched the surface of, because a lot of this tech and this approach is still so new.
Yeah.
To a lot of churches out there, but be thinking of ways that you can communicate these theological truths through, these ingredients that Ezra and his team have provided for you, and the software like Resolume, and then of course having the hardware and the LED screen.
Absolutely. And a couple more, here's another look from that clouds, almost like it's looking through glass or something like that.
Show them the multiply effect.
Oh, yeah.
If I want to put maybe like that declaration over the clouds or something.
Yeah, so this is really cool. Again, using blending modes here in Resolume, it kind of defaults to this lighten blending mode, which, that's a great look too.
Yeah.
But we could change this blending mode to multiply. What's going to happen is the multiply effect essentially it makes white pixels transparent while leaving black pixels black. And so when we click this, you're going to see that now those cloud textures are just sitting within the words.
That's cool.
And again, you could do the same thing in the opposite direction. So yeah, super fun. Moving down the line, we've kind of looked at this earlier, but we've got a couple of these declarations different outlines. Again, these are like super powerful on their own, especially at a really huge scale, but also really powerful as sort of ingredients, as we're calling them. Again, this on its own, very powerful, and this one is included in the sample pack currently. So go ahead and grab that. And then Eclipse, we've kind of got these like, almost, again, an eclipse. Yeah. And there's like 10 different looks in there, but I love this one. It just, again, kind of takes you to this feeling of reminding how big the universe is and how big God's creation is. I think it's super powerful. Essentials, these are some of our best sort of ingredients to blend with other things. So we've got that border, which you could layer on top of stuff. We've got this look here, which is kind of like, just kind of a growing gradient, essentially. But I'll show you this in connection with this concept that we were talking about earlier. I'm going to change this blending mode to difference.
Oh, wow.
And it's kind of cool because what the difference blending mode does is essentially invert the pixels. So with the black and white, it's going, it's kind of creating this really subtle thing, but it's such a cool effect.
Yeah.
And then what's great about that is, if we wanted to just fade that off and wait until the bridge for that to happen, we could just leave it off.
And like I say, we want to change the color.
Yeah. So we can apply that tint effect to the layer underneath. And the blending mode is then turning it sort of like the inverse of red and yellow. So let's say we're going like white and blue. It's going to turn it like, how cool is that?
Oh, wow. Jeez.
Yeah, so fun. So this is like a playground. Like Resolin becomes like this playground where you're just having so much fun with all these ingredients. And again, the Essentials collection is really perfect for that. Moving down the line, we have some sort of like star elements that could be great. This pack is called Abstract Glass. It was created by Cameron Benjamin, who was, and still is, I believe, still really heavily involved in all of the lighting design, stage design for Victory. And he is just an absolute whiz when it comes to lighting design, stage design, and also creating these beautiful visuals. Again, kind of hinting at like a stained glass concept or something like that, but sort of a modern interpretation of that. We have another version here that's kind of a nice, like, I really love these colors. I feel like these are so just tastefully done. Yep. Cameron really knocked it out of the park. That one's included in our sample pack. We've got these gradients, and I mean, they're self-explanatory, but honestly, this is one of our most popular collections because they're just so vibrant, and we found it really hard to find good looking gradients online. It was kind of surprising, and it's actually kind of a difficult thing to figure out how to make them really fill the screen nicely and not just feel like a stock plugin in Premiere. And so we really spent some time dialing in these colors, trying to think through a variety of things. And again, this is just 3. We have, I think there's 12 different colors that are, we got blues and oranges and greens and rainbow effects and monochromatic and all this sort of things. Moving on, another sort of like retro inspired collection here, all scanned on a vintage TV again. Super fun. This is created by Nathaniel Redekop, who for a long time was the creative director, or one of the creative directors at Hillsong Church. Did all of the visuals you've ever seen from Hillsong United, and he was so gracious to be able to come and join our team, for creating this collection. He's an absolute legend, one of my like tour visual heroes for sure. Moving on to another set of collections called Living Word. So these are actual, like, we're kind of using scriptures straight from the Bible and treating them as content and sort of treating them as a texture. And so if you look really closely, you see that we have, and they overcame because of the blood of the Lamb and the word of testimony. So we've got these like things that are, specific to worship visuals that you're not going to find anywhere else, where we're literally just pulling straight from Scripture. This is one of my all-time favorites. If you're zooming back, you can kind of see that the name Jesus is kind of in the text there, but the texture that we have building that full background is the different names of God. And so we have Jehovah Jireh, Protector, Savior, Alpha and Omega, all these different names of God. And so and then with, the name Jesus sort of being the overarching name. And so this pack is called No Other Name. I love this one.
Things like that, they feel like just art pieces that if a congregation member like is out there, it's gonna be hard for them to actually see what's going on. But imagine if we had other LED wall installations throughout the building, in the lobby, the fellowship hall, where you could just have like art pieces that creative people like you are designing, and because it's that's quite a bit of work to put all that stuff together, and then people can just like come up to it, and just like reflect and pray on these things, where it becomes part of the architecture and interior design of a church space.
100%. Yeah, we were actually inspired by the Belonging Co., who did something similar for their lobby. They basically had this like wallpaper, this like custom wallpaper. I don't know how they did it, but it's the entire Bible written over the entire wall in like tiny text.
Oh wow!
And as you're standing back, it basically just looks like a white wall, but as you get closer, it's like all there.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was the inspiration. And Paul Trimble, who is like one of the founding members of Sunday Screens, created all this, and I've known him for a very long time, and I know that he was very prayerful and considerate with all of these. Again, another sort of version of these names of God. Scrolling, we'll keep going. We've got these sound waves, which are, again, scanned on like a vintage TV by Nathaniel. I love this pack. I mean, it's just so subtle and cool. It's just something, and again, this is in like 12 different colors. We've got these spheres, which are, again, come in multiple colorways, but I love just how sort of we kind of, so this one I designed, and I try to get inspiration as little from like this medium as possible. I try to like get inspiration from modern art museums and going and seeing, how things affect you. And so these were very sort of modern art inspired, as you might be able to tell. And we have these in multiple colorways. This is definitely one of our most popular because it's just so, it's just, I don't know, it's just something that's soothing. There's not a lot of motion, but
but it still adds energy. Like it's like positive, kind of joyful energy to the space without like, being obnoxious.
Exactly.
That's the thing. We all like want, to have something like what's going to go well with the Phil Whitcomb songs, which sometimes you can debate whether or not those are obnoxious songs, but visually what can complement that's just going to make it feel like joyful. Or kind of have a more praise-oriented theme to it.
You can see that shape doesn't change. That crossfade is a perfect crossfade.
Yeah.
Because all of these were exported, at the same time to be super intentional with the ability to do stuff like that. So. Moving on, we got this collection called Spirit, and this was taken. The inspiration was in Genesis 1, where it says the Spirit of God hovered over the water. Kind of wanted this like visual representation of what that might have felt like or might have looked like. And so this sort of like rainbow of colors, this full spectrum of colors that's just all coming in together in this sort of like very wispy, abstract way. We really enjoy just thinking about stuff like that and applying it to sort of like, an output like this. Vortex, definitely the most sci-fi name that we've given a collection for sure. Again, in multiple colorways. This is just a couple of them. But tons there. Now this next collection I'm super excited about, and I'll show you the first visual. So this collection was designed in collaboration with Carrie Job and Cody Carnes. We essentially wanted to just support them as much as we possibly could on their tour last year. And we created these custom visuals that, some of these were specific to songs that they had actually written and ideas that, Cody brought to the table. This one was for the song of the Dove. And Cody reached out to me and said, dude, I can't get this picture out of my head of having an actual dove that represents the Holy Spirit in a visual form that we could take on tour with us. And so this was one of my favorites to work on, real footage of a dove that we've kind of affected. And it's such a beautiful one. Seeing that on tour across the world with them was just like definitely one of the highlights of our year for sure. We've got more arches. Again, all of these were sort of monochromatic black and white elements that allowed them to take it into multiple, lighting scenarios, multiple walls. And when you have white, black and white is like very often underrated. It can be like, again, kind of boring to look at on your computer, but you take it into a room like this and look how impactful that is.
Oh yeah.
Because on a wall like this becomes now a light source, like with something, when you're using LED, it's not just sort of like throwing it up into the distance. It actually becomes a source where it's actually backlighting, you and it's backlighting me. Yep. And you could turn off all of the key light in this room and have this beautiful moment where it's just this pulsing white bar. Yeah,
and this wall too, for our congregation, we have it at 30% brightness too. So like it actually could be even more powerful of a backlight.
A couple more left here. Turellian. kind of just, again, sort of modern art inspired pieces here. Very simple, sort of gradient-esque, but I actually got inspired by a visual artist named James Turrell, who creates these light installations, and this was kind of inspired by his work, kind of trying to bring that intention of using light as, such a powerful source of creativity. And then we've got these, again, sort of just basic, these look so basic on the screen, but like look at, just the way that pulses, it just feels so great. We've got these warm glow elements from that collection. And then final thing is just like, sort of a 3D interpretation of like waves. We've had a lot of people ask about things, related to water and things like that. So it could be really fun, but
it's the contrast is so important with, I like the orange blue combination, but then like, the lights and the darks, like the way that translates on that wall, it's awesome.
And I mean, again, on this wall, it just looks, this is like our dream. So thanks for making a great product.
I hope you guys have much more clarity now on how to utilize this amazing resource from Sunday Screens on your Altitude LED wall. Thank you so much, Ezra. Go check out their YouTube channel. Go check out sundayscreens.com to keep up with the latest packs that they are releasing, especially if you're not a customer yet. Go ahead and sign up. But if you're an Altitude LED customer, or if you're considering being one, just know that you will get a subscription to sundayscreens.com when you actually buy one of our products. And that subscription is going to include not only the content and the ingredients themselves, but also more training resources, much like what you just saw today, using software like Resolume to utilize this resource to its fullest. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time.